She took her first breaths in the freezing water of the Verde River, thrown there by her own grandfather because the purple birthmark covering half her face marked her as cursed. The Apache warrior who heard her dying cries had seconds to choose: let the white man's rejected infant drown, or save her and risk everything. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go. The morning sun had not yet climbed above the crimson cliffs when the bundle was cast into the Verde River. The water, still cold from the night, swallowed the small form without ceremony, without witness, without mercy. Inside the woven blanket, a newborn girl gasped her first breaths in a world that had already rejected her. Her crime was simple. She had been born different. A birthmark, deep purple and spread across the left side of her tiny face like spilled wine, had sealed her fate before her eyes had fully opened. In the settlement of Copper Ridge, a small mining town on the edge of Apache territory in the Arizona desert of 1867, superstition ran as deep as the copper veins beneath the earth. When Martha Henley, the midwife, had unwrapped the infant and seen the mark, her face had gone white as chalk. "Devil's touch," she had whispered, making the sign of the cross. The mother, Sarah Pemberton, barely 16 and unwed, had turned her face to the wall and wept. Her father, a harsh man hardened further by the unforgiving land, had made the decision with cold finality. "No child of mine will bear such a mark," he had declared. "The river will decide her fate." And so, in the grey hour before dawn, Sarah's younger brother had carried the bundle to the water's edge. His hands had trembled as he released it to the current. He was only 12, too young to understand that some decisions would haunt him for the rest of his days. The baby had not cried when she touched the water. Perhaps she sensed that silence was her only remaining prayer. The river carried her downstream, past willow trees that wept into the current, past rocks smoothed by 1,000 years of flow, past the invisible boundary where white man's law ended and Apache land began. The bundle turned slowly in an eddy, caught between two worlds, neither claiming her, both threatening to pull her under. Dakota had risen before sunrise, as was his custom. At 23 winters, he was already known among his people as a man of unusual perception. Where others saw only what lay on the surface, he saw deeper, into the heart of a storm, into the truth behind a stranger's words, into the soul of the land itself. His grandmother, White Dove, said he had been born with eyes that looked both forward and backward, seeing not just what was, but what could be. He had come to the river to water his horse, a dappled mare he called Morning Star. The air was crisp, scented with sage and juniper, and the world was painted in shades of purple and gold. It should have been a peaceful moment. Instead, the hair on his arms rose, and an inexplicable urgency seized his chest. Then he heard it, a sound so faint it might have been mistaken for a bird's cry or the wind through the reeds. But Dakota knew the voice of the river in all its moods, and this was something foreign to its song. He dismounted in one fluid motion, his moccasined feet silent on the sandy bank. His dark eyes scanned the water, and there, caught against a fallen log near the far shore, he saw the bundle. Without thought, without hesitation, he waded into the current. The water soaked through his buckskin leggings, shocking his skin with its cold grip. Morning Star whinnied nervously from the bank, but Dakota pressed forward. The current pulled at his legs, trying to claim him as it had tried to claim the bundle, but his footing was sure. He had grown up in this river. It knew him as well as he knew it. His hands closed around the wet fabric. It was surprisingly light, but as he lifted it from the water, it shifted, and a tiny arm emerged. Fingers splayed, pale as moonlight, searching blindly for something to hold. Dakota's breath caught. A baby. Someone had thrown a baby into the river. He turned and fought his way back to the shore, cradling the bundle against his chest to shield it from the spray. On solid ground, he carefully peeled back the soaked layers of cloth. The infant inside was blue with cold, her lips trembling, but her eyes, dark as obsidian, locked onto his face with an intensity that pierced straight through him. And there, covering half her small face, was the mark. For a long moment, Takoda simply stared. He had seen many things in his life, beauty and horror, birth and death, the cruelty of men and the mercy of the earth. But never had he seen something so small fight so hard to simply breathe. The baby's chest rose and fell in rapid, desperate movements. She was dying, and she knew it, yet she did not look away from him. In that gaze, Takoda saw no curse, no devil's touch, no omen of misfortune. He saw only what he had always been able to see, the truth. And the truth was simple. This was a child, this was a life, and she deserved to live. He removed his hide vest and wrapped it around her, holding her close to share his warmth. The baby's cries, which had been weak and thin, began to strengthen. She nuzzled against his chest, seeking heat, seeking comfort, seeking the one thing her birth family had denied her: acceptance. "You are stronger than they know," Takoda whispered in his language, his voice rough with emotion. "You have survived what was meant to kill you. That makes you one of the warriors, little one." Morning Star approached cautiously, her warm breath steaming in the cool air. She lowered her head and sniffed the bundle, then huffed softly as if in approval. Takoda smiled, despite the gravity of the moment. Even his horse recognized that this child was meant to be saved. He mounted carefully, settling the infant in the crook of his left arm while his right hand held the reins. The sun was finally cresting the canyon walls, painting the desert in brilliant gold and amber. As he turned Morning Star toward home, toward his people's camp in the sheltered valley known as Shadow Canyon, Takoda felt the weight of what he carried. Not just the physical weight of the child, but the weight of the choice he had made. His people had their own beliefs, their own superstitions, their own reasons to fear the unknown. Bringing a white child into their midst would raise questions. Bringing a marked child would raise even more. But as the baby's tiny fingers wrapped around one of the leather fringes on his shirt, holding on with unexpected strength, Takoda knew his path was set. The river had not claimed her, therefore the spirits had chosen her to live, and he would make certain the choice was honored. The ride back to Shadow Canyon took the better part of an hour, but for Takoda, each minute felt weighted with destiny. The baby had stopped crying shortly after leaving the river, her small body warming against his chest. She slept now, her breathing soft and even, trusting him in the way only the innocent can trust. Occasionally, her tiny hand would flex, grasping at nothing, and Takoda would adjust his hold to make her more secure. Shadow Canyon was well named. The valley lay nestled between two towering walls of red stone that cast long shadows even at midday, creating a natural shelter from the harsh desert sun. Here, his band of Apache lived in harmony with the land, hunting, gathering, following the season's rhythms as their ancestors had done for countless generations. Approximately 60 people called this place home, from elders who remembered the old ways to children who were just learning them. As Takoda rode into camp, the usual morning activity came to a gradual halt. Women who had been grinding corn looked up. Men preparing for a hunting party paused in checking their weapons. Children stopped their games. All eyes turned to the warrior who had left alone at dawn and now returned with something unexpected cradled against him. Takoda dismounted near his grandmother's dwelling, a sturdy structure of bent saplings covered with hides and woven mats. White Dove emerged before he could call for her, as if she had sensed his arrival. At 70 winters, she moved with the careful deliberation of age, but her eyes remained sharp as a hawk's. She had raised Takoda after his parents died in a fever outbreak when he was only 5. She had taught him to see beyond surfaces, to judge with wisdom rather than fear. "Grandmother," Takoda said in Apache, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "the river has sent us a gift." White Dove approached, her weathered face unreadable. She looked first at her grandson, then at the bundle he held. When she pulled back the hide vest to reveal the sleeping infant, her expression did not change, but something flickered in the depths of her eyes. She saw the birthmark. She saw the pale skin. She saw the shallow rise and fall of the small chest. "This is no Apache, child," said a harsh voice from behind them. Takoda turned to see Charging Bear, one of the senior warriors, approaching with several others. Charging Bear was a man of 40 winters, scarred from many battles, his face set in permanent lines of suspicion. "This is a white child. They cast out their own, and you bring her here?" "I bring a child who was thrown into the river to die," Takoda responded, his voice carrying across the gathering crowd. "I heard her cries and pulled her from the water. Should I have left her to drown?" "Yes," Charging Bear said flatly. "The whites have brought us nothing but death and broken promises. Why should we show mercy to their abandoned?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked uncertain. A few glanced at White Dove, waiting for the elder's wisdom. "Because we are not them," said a woman's voice. Takoda turned to see Meadow Song, a young mother who had recently lost her own infant to sickness. Her eyes were red-rimmed but clear. "We do not punish children for the sins of their parents. We do not cast out the helpless." "This child bears a mark," said another woman, Yellow Willow, her tone uneasy. "Perhaps her own people saw something we cannot. Perhaps she brings misfortune." The baby chose that moment to wake. Her eyes opened, unfocused at first, then settling on the faces surrounding her. She did not cry. Instead, she gazed with solemn attention at each person, as if memorizing their features, as if understanding that her fate hung in the balance of this moment. White Dove stepped forward and placed one gnarled finger gently on the baby's unmarked cheek. The infant turned toward the touch, her small mouth making sucking motions. "She hungers," White Dove said simply. "She lives. The mark on her face is only skin. It does not mark her spirit. I see no curse here. I see only a child who fought to survive." She looked up at the gathered people, her voice gaining strength. "Long ago, when I was young, a similar thing happened. A Navajo child was found abandoned near our camp. Many said we should not take him in. But my mother, who was a wise woman, said that the Great Spirit tests us not through our words, but through our actions. That boy grew to be a great healer. He saved many lives, including mine, when sickness took hold one winter." Takoda felt hope stirring in his chest. His grandmother understood. She saw what he saw. "I will care for this child," White Dove declared. "If any object, they may speak now. But know that when we reject the helpless, we reject our own humanity. We become no better than those who cast her into the river." Charging Bear's jaw tightened, but he did not speak again. Several others shifted uncomfortably, their faces conflicted. Meadow Song stepped forward. "I have milk," she said quietly. "My son is gone, but I still have milk. I will help feed her." The tension broke like a storm passing. Not everyone was pleased. That much was clear from the stony faces and muttered conversations, but no one openly challenged White Dove's authority. The elder's word carried weight, earned through decades of wisdom and service to her people. White Dove took the baby from Takoda's arms with practiced ease. "Come," she said to Meadow Song. "Let us see if this little warrior will eat." As the two women disappeared into the dwelling, Takoda felt the adrenaline that had sustained him finally begin to ebb. His clothes were still damp from the river, and exhaustion pulled at his limbs. But as he watched the entrance where the baby had been carried, he felt a profound certainty settle over him. He had done the right thing. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever opposition they faced, this child deserved her chance to live. The river had spoken, the spirits had guided his steps. Now he would ensure they had not done so in vain. The first days were the hardest. The baby, though strong-willed, was also fragile from her ordeal in the river. White Dove and Meadow Song took turns caring for her, nursing her back to health with a devotion that gradually softened even the hardest hearts in Shadow Canyon. Dakota watched from a respectful distance, but he came by his grandmother's dwelling every evening to check on the infant's progress. On the third night, as the sun painted the canyon walls in shades of orange and purple, White Dove called him inside. The baby lay on a soft deer skin, wrapped in rabbit fur, her dark eyes tracking the movement of shadows cast by the fire. The birthmark on her face had become less alarming with familiarity. Now it simply seemed part of who she was, like the unique patterns on a bird's wing or the whorls on a seashell. "She needs a name," White Dove said, grinding herbs in a stone bowl. "She cannot remain nameless. Names give us power, give us identity." Dakota knelt beside the infant, studying her. She looked back at him with that same intense gaze she had fixed on him at the river, as if she recognized him, as if she remembered that he had been the one to pull her from death's grasp. Her tiny hand reached toward him, and he offered his finger. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "She was meant to die, but she lives," Dakota said thoughtfully. "She was cast into the water, but the water brought her to us. She is marked, but the mark makes her distinctive, not cursed." White Dove nodded, a slight smile on her weathered face. "So what name do you see in her?" Dakota thought for a long moment, watching the firelight dance across the baby's features. Then it came to him, clear as the morning sun breaking over the canyon rim. "Nasha," he said quietly. "It means owl, because the owl sees in the darkness, because the owl is considered a guide for those who have lost their way, and because she has eyes that see deeply, even now." "Nasha," White Dove repeated, testing the name. "Yes, this is good. She is Nasha, the one who was returned to us by the river." From that night forward, the child was known by that name, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the canyon began to accept her presence. Children who had initially been frightened of her appearance grew curious, peeking around doorways to watch when Meadow Song carried her through the camp. Women who had been skeptical found themselves pausing to coo at her when she smiled, a toothless, gummy smile that held no guile, only joy. The person most transformed by Nasha's presence was Meadow Song herself. After losing her own child, she had walked through the world like a ghost, performing tasks mechanically but feeling nothing. Now, with Nasha to care for, the light had returned to her eyes. She sang to the baby in the old language, songs her mother had sung to her, songs about the earth and sky, about courage and belonging. "She has brought Meadow Song back to life," Dakota's friend Running Elk observed one afternoon as they prepared for a hunt. "That is powerful medicine." "All children have that power," Dakota replied, checking the tension in his bowstring, "if we allow them to." Running Elk, a man of 25 winters with a quick smile and an even quicker wit, clapped him on the shoulder. "You have done a good thing, brother." Even Charging Bear has stopped complaining, though he still watches the child with suspicion. Indeed, Charging Bear remained wary. He never spoke against Nasha openly, but his expression whenever he saw her was one of guarded mistrust, as if waiting for the misfortune Yellow Willow had predicted to manifest. Yet week followed week, and no calamity befell the canyon. The hunts were successful, the weather remained favorable, and the children stayed healthy. By the time 2 moons had passed, Nasha had become simply part of the community's fabric. She was the baby who slept in White Dove's dwelling, who nursed at Meadow Song's breast, who made gurgling sounds that delighted the other children. The birthmark that covered half her face was no longer remarked upon. It was simply Nasha's face, the face of the child the river had given them. One evening, as spring began to warm into summer, White Dove asked Dakota to walk with her to the canyon's edge. They stood together looking out over the desert as the sun descended, painting everything in gold and crimson. "You understand what you have begun?" White Dove asked, her voice quiet but serious. Dakota nodded. "I saved her life." "More than that," his grandmother said, "you have made her one of us. And that means teaching her, protecting her, guiding her. She will grow up between two worlds, Apache in spirit, but white in blood. There will be challenges you cannot yet imagine. Then we will face them," Dakota said with conviction. "Together." White Dove smiled, a rare full smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. "You have the heart of a true warrior, grandson. Not because you are fierce in battle, but because you are fierce in compassion. That is the harder path and the more important one." They stood in comfortable silence as darkness crept across the land. In White Dove's dwelling, Nasha slept peacefully, unaware of the conversations held about her, unaware of her unusual origin, unaware of anything except warmth, safety, and the steady rhythm of Meadowsong's heartbeat as the young mother held her close. The river had tried to claim her. Instead, it had delivered her to exactly where she needed to be. And though no one could see the future, though no one knew what trials awaited, in that moment, everything was as it should be. 3 years passed like water flowing through Shadow Canyon, swift and steady, each season bringing its own gifts and challenges. Nasha grew from a helpless infant into a spirited child who walked with confidence and spoke with clarity. Her Apache was flawless, learned from the lips of those who loved her. She knew no English, no white man's ways. To her, Shadow Canyon was the entire world, and everyone in it was family. The birthmark remained, a deep purple splash across the left side of her face, from forehead to jaw. But to the people of Shadow Canyon, it had become invisible, not because they didn't see it, but because they saw past it to the bright, curious soul beneath. Nasha was fearless, climbing rocks that made other children hesitate, wading into the shallow parts of the river without concern, chasing lizards with determination that made the adults laugh. Dakota watched her grow with a pride that surprised him. He had not intended to become a father figure to her, yet that was precisely what had happened. When Nasha took her first steps, she had walked directly to him, arms outstretched, squealing with delight. When she spoke her first words, one of them had been his name. When she had nightmares, she called for him before anyone else. "She has claimed you," White Dove said with amusement, watching Dakota help Nasha gather smooth stones by the stream one afternoon. "You pulled her from the water, and now she believes you hung the moon." Dakota smiled, unable to deny it. "She is special, grandmother. There is something in her, a light that doesn't dim." "Yes," White Dove agreed, her expression growing serious. "But remember, grandson, that the brightest lights attract the most attention. Not all of it will be kind." Her words proved prophetic sooner than anyone expected. That summer, when Nasha was 3.5, a group of white traders passed through the territory, seeking to establish relations with the Apache bands. It was a tense situation. The whites brought goods the people needed, but they also brought memories of broken treaties and stolen land. Dakota and several other warriors met the traders at the canyon's entrance, a neutral ground where such negotiations typically occurred. The traders were led by a grizzled man named Jacob Thornton, whose weathered face spoke of years on the frontier. He was accompanied by 5 other men, all armed, but showing no immediate aggression. The meeting proceeded cautiously. Thornton spoke a little Apache, supplemented with hand gestures, proposing trades of steel knives, fabric, and ammunition for furs, and safe passage through the territory. White Dove, who attended as the band's elder representative, listened with careful attention, weighing each word. It was then that Nasha appeared, having slipped away from Meadow Song's watchful eye. She emerged from behind a rock formation, her small figure backlit by the afternoon sun, her long, dark hair, so like Apache children's hair, catching the light. She was humming to herself, carrying a handful of wildflowers. "Takoda!" she called out cheerfully in Apache, running toward him. "Look what I found!" The effect on the traders was immediate and profound. Thornton's eyes widened. One of his companions let out a low curse. They saw her face, the birthmark impossible to miss, and the recognition in their expressions was unmistakable. "Good God," Thornton breathed in English. "That's the Pemberton girl." Takoda didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. He moved instinctively, placing himself between Nasha and the traders. The child, sensing the sudden tension, stopped her advance and looked up at him with confusion. "The one from Copper Ridge," another trader said, his voice carrying across the distance. "They said she drowned 3 years back, the marked baby." Thornton's hand moved slowly toward his rifle, not threatening yet, but deliberate. "That child is white," he said carefully in broken Apache. "She belongs with her people." "She is with her people," Takoda replied, his voice steady and cold as mountain stone. "She is Apache. She has been Apache since the day the river brought her to us." White Dove stepped forward, her small frame somehow commanding despite her age. "The child you speak of was thrown into the river to die. We saved her, we raised her. She is ours now, given to us by the spirits." "Her grandfather is still alive," Thornton said, his expression hardening. "Samuel Pemberton. He's been looking for her. Didn't believe she truly drowned. There's a reward for her return." The words hung in the air like smoke from a signal fire. Nasha, not understanding the conversation but feeling the danger, pressed close to Takoda's leg. He placed a protective hand on her head, his jaw set firm. "You will not take her," he said quietly, but with absolute finality. "Tell this grandfather that his granddaughter died in the river. Tell him the truth, that his family cast her away and we gave her life. She stays here." Thornton studied him for a long moment, then glanced at his companions. Some looked ready to argue, to fight if necessary. But Thornton was a practical man who knew when a situation was balanced on a knife's edge. "We'll see," he said finally, his tone neutral. "We'll see." The traders departed without completing any trade, and as they rode away, Takoda felt the weight of what had just occurred settle on his shoulders. The outside world had found Nasha. The question was no longer if they would try to take her, but when. That night, the council fire burned late into the darkness. Every adult in Shadow Canyon gathered to discuss what had transpired with the traders. The flames cast dancing shadows on worried faces as voices rose and fell in heated debate. Nasha slept peacefully in White Dove's dwelling, unaware that her future was being decided beneath the stars. Charging Bear was the first to speak, his voice carrying the weight of old grievances. "I warned you this would happen," he said, looking directly at Takoda. "I told you bringing the white child here would bring trouble. Now her people know she lives. Now they will come for her. Let them come," Takoda replied, his tone sharp as flint. "They will find that she is not theirs to take." "And how many of our people will die defending her?" Charging Bear demanded. "How many of our children will suffer because we chose to protect one who is not our blood?" "She is our blood now," Meadow Song interjected, her voice trembling but firm. "I have nursed her at my breast. I have sung her to sleep. She calls me mother. Are you saying that means nothing?" A murmur of agreement rippled through some of the gathered people, but others shifted uncomfortably. The truth was undeniable. Nasha had been raised Apache, but her pale skin and the circumstances of her arrival made her a potential bridge between two worlds, or a spark that could ignite a devastating fire. White Dove raised her hand, and silence fell. "We must think carefully," she said, her voice steady despite her years. "The Whites have power we cannot ignore. If they truly want the child back, they may bring soldiers. We have seen what happens when the soldiers come." Everyone knew what she meant. 2 winters ago, a neighboring band had been attacked by cavalry after a misunderstanding over stolen horses. Half their people had been killed or scattered. The memory haunted them all. "Then perhaps," said Yellow Willow hesitantly, "we should consider letting her go. Return her to her own kind before blood is spilled." "No." The word came from Takoda with such force that several people flinched. He stood, his tall frame silhouetted against the firelight. "I pulled her from the river when her own people left her to die. I gave her my protection then, and I will not withdraw it now. If anyone tries to take her, they will have to go through me first." Running Elk stood beside his friend. "And through me," he added quietly. Several other young warriors rose as well, their faces determined. But Takoda could see the fear in the eyes of the mothers, the hesitation in the faces of the elders. He understood their concern. They had families to protect, children of their own to consider. "I will not ask anyone to fight who does not wish to," Takoda said, his voice softening. "But I will not surrender Nasha. If necessary, I will take her and leave Shadow Canyon. I will find another place, another way." White Dove studied her grandson for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "That may be the wisest path," she said. "Not permanent exile, but distance. There are other bands to the north, in the high mountains where the white men rarely venture. You could take her there for a time until this storm passes." "And if it doesn't pass?" Charging Bear asked. "If they search for her until they find her, then we will deal with that when it comes," White Dove replied. "But for now, we buy time. We protect our people and the child both." The council continued late into the night, but the decision had been made. Takoda would take Nasha north to a band led by a chief named Grey Wolf, White Dove's cousin. Meadow Song would accompany them. She could not bear to be separated from the child she had raised. Running Elk volunteered as well, citing the need for an extra hunter and scout. When Takoda finally returned to check on Nasha, he found her awake, sitting up on her sleeping mat. The firelight caught the purple mark on her face, making it seem to glow softly in the darkness. "Where were you?" she asked in Apache, her small voice worried. "I woke up, and you weren't here." He knelt beside her, brushing her long, dark hair back from her face. "I was talking with the elders, little owl, making plans." "What kind of plans?" Her dark eyes studied him with that unsettling perception she had always possessed. How could he explain to a 3-year-old that her very existence had become dangerous? That people she had never met wanted to claim her? That the family who had cast her into the river now wanted her back, not out of love, but out of obligation or perhaps greed? "We're going on an adventure," he said finally, forcing warmth into his voice. "You, me, Meadowsong, and Running Elk. We're going to visit other Apache people in the mountains. Would you like that?" Nasha's face brightened immediately. "Will there be snow?" "Grandmother told me about snow." "Perhaps," Takoda smiled, though his heart was heavy. "In the high places, there is often snow." She threw her small arms around his neck, hugging him with the fierce affection only children possess. "I'm glad you're coming too," she whispered. "I feel safe when you're near." Takoda held her close, his throat tight with emotion. "I will always keep you safe, little owl," he promised. "Always." They left Shadow Canyon 3 days later, just before dawn. The departure was quiet. No ceremony, no fanfare, just a handful of embraces and whispered blessings. White Dove held Nasha for a long moment, whispering something in her ear that made the child nod solemnly. Then she turned to Takoda, placing both weathered hands on his face. "You carry more than a child, grandson," she said softly. "You carry hope. Remember that when the path grows difficult." The journey north would take nearly 2 weeks through increasingly rugged terrain. Takoda led on horseback with Nasha seated in front of him, wrapped securely in a blanket. Meadowsong rode beside them, her face both sad and determined. Running Elk scouted ahead on foot, his sharp eyes reading the land for signs of danger or game. The first few days passed without incident. They traveled through desert, transitioning slowly into pine-covered foothills, the air growing cooler with each mile. Nasha delighted in everything. The way morning star's mane felt between her fingers, the sound of birds she had never heard before, the taste of juniper berries. Running Elk showed her how to identify. "Look, Takoda," she would exclaim at every discovery. "The rocks here are different colors. Or that cloud looks like a rabbit." Her joy was infectious. And even Meadowsong, who had been withdrawn since leaving her home, began to smile more frequently. At night, they made small camps, and Takoda would tell Nasha stories of the old times, tales of Coyote the trickster, of how the stars came to be, of brave warriors and wise women who shaped the world. But on the 6th day, their peace shattered. Running Elk returned to camp at midday, his expression grave. "Riders," he said quietly, "white men. 5 of them, heavily armed, they're following our trail." Takoda's blood ran cold. So soon, he had hoped they would have more time, that the traders would take weeks to organize a pursuit. Clearly, he had underestimated their determination or the size of the reward Samuel Pemberton was offering. "How far behind?" he asked, already planning. "Half a day, maybe less." "They're moving fast." Meadowsong pulled Nasha close, her face pale. "What do we do?" Takoda studied the surrounding terrain. They were in a narrow canyon with steep walls, poor for defense, but those same walls might provide an advantage if used cleverly. "Running Elk, can you delay them? Not fight, just slow them down?" His friend grinned fiercely. "I can make them think spirits are haunting them." "Do it. Meadowsong, take Nasha and the horses up that side trail. There's a small cave I spotted earlier. Hide there until I come for you." "What about you?" Meadowsong asked, though she already knew the answer. "I'm going to talk to them. Alone." He crouched down to Nasha's level, taking her small hands in his. "Little owl, remember the game we played?" "The quiet game." She nodded, her eyes wide but trusting. "I need you to play that game now with Meadowsong. No talking, no sounds, until I say it's safe. Can you do that for me?" "Are the bad men coming?" she whispered, her perceptiveness cutting straight to the truth. "I won't let them hurt you," Takoda promised. "Never." Within an hour, Meadowsong and Nasha were hidden in the cave, the horses secured in a dense thicket nearby. Running Elk had disappeared into the canyon walls like smoke. Takoda stood alone at a narrow point in the trail where it bottomed out between 2 high rock faces, his bow across his back, a single spear planted in the ground beside him. He did not hide. He wanted to be seen. The riders appeared as the sun reached its zenith. Jacob Thornton led them, as Takoda had expected. The men reined in their horses when they saw him blocking the path, their hands moving instinctively toward their weapons. "Where's the girl?" "Udu," Thornton called out, his voice echoing off the canyon walls. "Safe," Takoda replied in the limited English he had learned from traders over the years. "Not yours. Her grandfather has rights," Thornton said, his horse dancing nervously beneath him. "Legal rights. She's white and she belongs with white people." "Her grandfather threw her in river," Takoda said, his broken English giving his words a harsh, staccato rhythm. She died there. Apache child lives now. Nasha, not your girl." One of the other riders, younger and more impetuous, urged his horse forward. "We're not leaving without her, Indian. Step aside or—" The young man's threat died as an arrow suddenly sprouted from the ground at his horse's feet. The animal reared, nearly throwing its rider. More arrows followed, appearing from impossible angles, none hitting flesh, but creating the impression of invisible archers surrounding them completely. "This land protects its own," Dakota said, his voice carrying a certainty that made even Thornton hesitate. "Go back. Tell grandfather girl is dead. Truth for him. Lie for you. But both same. She not yours." For a long, tense moment, the outcome balanced on a knife's edge. Then Thornton, reading the determination in Dakota's stance and the fear in his companions' faces, slowly raised his hand in a gesture of withdrawal. "This isn't over," he said. "Pemberton won't stop." "Then he wastes his time," Dakota replied. "Go now." The riders turned and retreated, their departure hastened by more phantom arrows. Dakota remained standing until they disappeared from view, his heart pounding, but his face calm. Only then did he allow himself to breathe. Grey Wolf's band lived in the high country, where the air was thin and clear, where eagles nested in towering pines, and where winter came early and stayed late. When Dakota's small group finally reached the settlement after another week of hard travel, they were exhausted but relieved. The mountain Apache lived differently from their desert cousins. Their dwellings were more permanent, their lifestyle adapted to the harsh but beautiful terrain. Grey Wolf himself was a man of 60 winters, his face lined with wisdom and weather, his long hair streaked with silver. He greeted White Dove's grandson with warmth, embracing him as family despite never having met him before. When his eyes fell on Nasha, hiding shyly behind Dakota's leg, his expression revealed nothing but gentle curiosity. "So this is the river child," he said in Apache, his voice deep and measured. "My cousin wrote to me about her. She said you pulled her from death's grasp." "The river gave her to us," Dakota replied, his hand protective on Nasha's shoulder. "Now men from her old world hunt her. We need sanctuary, at least for a time." Grey Wolf nodded slowly. "The whites are like floodwaters. They cover everything eventually. But here in these mountains, they rarely venture. Their horses struggle with the altitude, and the paths confuse them. You are welcome here, all of you, for as long as you need." The mountain band accepted them without question, following their chief's lead. But Dakota noticed something different here. These people had less contact with whites, less reason to fear or resent them. To them, Nasha was simply a child who needed protection, and that was reason enough. Within days, Nasha was exploring her new home with characteristic fearlessness. The mountains delighted her. She had never seen snow before, and when the first flakes fell in late autumn, she stood with her face turned skyward, mouth open, laughing as the cold crystals melted on her tongue. "It tastes like the sky," she exclaimed, spinning in circles until she grew dizzy and fell into a snowbank. The mountain children welcomed her into their games quickly. They taught her to slide down snowy slopes on flat pieces of bark, to track rabbit prints in the fresh snow, to recognize which pine cones held the tastiest seeds. Her birthmark, which had caused such concern in Shadow Canyon and recognition among the traders, meant nothing to these children. They had never known her as anything other than Nasha, Dakota's girl, and that was identity enough. But not everyone was so accepting. Storm Cloud, Grey Wolf's daughter, watched Nasha with an expression that was difficult to read. She was a woman of 28 winters, beautiful and proud, who had never married despite many offers. She had devoted herself instead to becoming one of the band's finest hunters and scouts, earning respect typically reserved for men. One evening, as Dakota helped Nasha make a small shelter from pine branches, teaching her skills she would need to survive in this terrain, Stormcloud approached. Her movements were graceful, deliberate, like a mountain lion stalking prey. "You are good with her," Stormcloud observed, her tone neutral. "She is easy to be good with," Takoda replied, watching Nasha struggle determinedly with a branch too heavy for her. "She is white," Stormcloud said bluntly. "Her people will never stop searching. You know this." Takoda's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice level. "Then they will keep searching and keep failing. She belongs here now." Stormcloud studied him with dark, penetrating eyes. "You risk much for one who is not your blood. A warrior should think of his people first, not a foundling." "She is my people," Takoda said firmly. "I chose her, and she chose me. That is blood enough." Something flickered in Stormcloud's expression. Not anger, but something more complex. Respect, perhaps, or recognition of a kindred spirit who understood the power of choice over obligation. "Then I hope you are prepared to defend that choice with your life," she said quietly, "because that day will come." She walked away, leaving Takoda with a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain cold. He looked at Nasha, who had finally managed to prop up her branch and was crowing with victory, her face split by a grin that made the birthmark crease into new patterns. "Look, Takoda! I did it!" He smiled despite his worry, moving to help her secure the structure. "You did, little owl. You're getting stronger every day." As autumn deepened into winter and snow buried the high country under a pristine blanket, life in the mountain camp settled into a peaceful rhythm. Takoda taught Nasha to use a small bow, to read animal tracks, to find her way using stars and landmarks. Meadow Song continued to nurture her, singing songs and teaching her the women's crafts, weaving, cooking, preparing hides. But at night, alone with his thoughts, Takoda couldn't shake Stormcloud's warning. Samuel Pemberton had not given up. He knew that in his bones. The old man had lost his daughter to shame and his granddaughter to the river. Now that he knew she lived, his pride would drive him to reclaim her, no matter the cost. The question was not if they would come again, but when, and whether Takoda would be strong enough, clever enough, brave enough to protect the child he had come to love as his own daughter. Winter's grip was beginning to loosen when they came. Not hired trackers this time, but a force of 12 armed men led by Samuel Pemberton himself. The old man had traveled through treacherous terrain, driven by a determination that bordered on obsession. He brought with him a translator, 2 federal marshals claiming jurisdiction, and enough firepower to suggest he expected resistance. Grey Wolf received word of their approach from scouts 2 days before they reached the camp. He called a council immediately, his face grave. "They come in force," he said. "Not to negotiate, but to take." Takoda stood before the gathered people, Nasha sleeping peacefully in Meadow Song's dwelling, unaware that her world was about to be torn apart again. "I will not hand her over," he said simply, "but I will not ask anyone else to fight for her. Give me horses, supplies, and we will leave before they arrive." "No." The voice was Stormcloud's. She stood, her tall frame commanding attention. "They will track you. They will never stop. And next time there may be soldiers, cavalry, more blood." She paused, her eyes meeting Takoda's. "There is another way." "What way?" Grey Wolf asked. "Let them see her," Stormcloud said. "Let them see what she has become." Sometimes, even hard men can be moved by truth. Takoda wanted to refuse, to spirit Nasha away into the wilderness where no one could ever find them. But Stormcloud was right. Running would only delay the inevitable. And perhaps, just perhaps, if Pemberton saw his granddaughter not as property, but as a living, thriving child, something might change. 2 days later, as morning mist clung to the mountains, the white men entered the camp. Grey Wolf met them at the edge, flanked by warriors whose calm demeanor belied their readiness for violence. Samuel Pemberton dismounted slowly. He was a man of 70, his body bent by years and grief, but his eyes burned with fierce determination. "I am here for my granddaughter," he announced through his translator, his voice rough as gravel. "I know she's here. I want her returned." "Come," Grey Wolf said simply. "See her. Then we talk." Pemberton's surprise was evident, but he followed, accompanied by the two marshals. They were led to the center of camp, where children played in the melting snow. And there, among them, was Nasha. She wore buckskin clothing decorated with beadwork Meadowsong had sewn. Her long dark hair was braided with colored thread. She was teaching a younger child how to string a small bow, her voice patient, her Apache flowing naturally. When she laughed at the child's clumsy attempt, the sound was pure joy. Then she saw the strangers, her eyes, dark and intelligent, fixed on Pemberton with cautious curiosity. She moved instinctively closer to Dakota, who had positioned himself nearby, and slipped her small hand into his much larger one. "That's her," Pemberton whispered, his face pale. "Sarah's child. My blood." The translator started to speak, but Pemberton held up his hand. He took a step forward, and Nasha retreated behind Dakota's leg, peeking out with wariness. The old man stopped, his eyes taking in every detail, the birthmark that had condemned her, the healthy glow of her cheeks, the confident way she carried herself. "Tell her," Pemberton said hoarsely. "Tell her I'm her grandfather." The translator spoke in broken Apache, Nasha's brow furrowed in confusion. "Grandfather," she repeated. Then she looked up at Dakota. "What is grandfather?" The question hit Pemberton like a physical blow. His granddaughter didn't even know the word. She had been so thoroughly absorbed into Apache life that her white heritage was completely foreign to her. "My daughter threw you away," Pemberton said, though Nasha couldn't understand his English. "I didn't know until it was too late. I've been searching for 3 years." His voice cracked. "I thought I could make it right. Bring you home, give you the life you should have had." Stormcloud stepped forward, translating his words into Apache so Nasha could understand. The child listened, her face solemn, then looked at the old man with those penetrating eyes that saw so much. "This is my home," she said clearly in Apache. "Dakota is my father. Meadowsong is my mother. These are my people." She touched the birthmark on her face without shame. "They say this is special. They say it makes me unique, like the patterns on a butterfly's wing." Stormcloud translated, and Pemberton's face crumpled. He sank to his knees in the snow, and for the first time, Dakota saw him not as an enemy, but as a broken old man haunted by his family's cruelty. "She's happy," one of the marshals said quietly. "Sir, she's truly happy here." Pemberton looked up at Dakota, tears streaming down his weathered face. "You saved her. You gave her what we couldn't. Acceptance." Dakota said nothing, merely tightening his protective hold on Nasha's hand. The old man stood slowly, seemed to age another decade in that moment. "I won't take her," he said finally, "but I need to know she'll be safe. That if anything happens, someone will..." He couldn't finish. Grey Wolf spoke then, his voice carrying ancient authority. "She is under our protection. As long as the mountains stand, she will have a home here." Before Samuel Pemberton left the mountain, he did something unexpected. He removed a leather pouch from his coat and placed it in Grey Wolf's hands. "For her," he said quietly, "not to buy her back, but for her future. When she's older, if she ever wants to know about her mother, about where she came from." His voice faltered. "Tell her Sarah loved her. She was just too young, too afraid. Tell her we were wrong." Grey Wolf accepted the pouch with dignity. Inside were coins, a small silver locket containing a faded image of a young woman, and a letter written in careful script. "She will know," the chief promised, "when the time is right." Pemberton looked one last time at Nasha, who watched him with solemn eyes from Dakota's protective embrace. He raised his hand in farewell, not reaching for her, respecting the boundaries she had drawn. Then he mounted his horse and rode away, his shoulders bent under the weight of what he was leaving behind. Nasha was quiet for the rest of that day. That evening, as Dakota tucked her into her sleeping furs, she finally spoke. Was he sad? Yes, Dakota answered honestly. Very sad. Because of me? No, little owl. Because he finally understood what his family lost when they threw you away. Because he saw that you are loved and happy, and he knows he can never be part of that. She considered this, her small face thoughtful. I'm glad you found me, she said finally. I'm glad the river brought me to you. Dakota's throat tightened. So am I. The seasons turned, one flowing into another, like the river that had brought Nasha to them. She grew taller, stronger, more skilled. By the time she reached 8 winters, she could track game as well as children twice her age, could climb the steep mountain paths without fear, could speak not only Apache, but also bits of English that Stormcloud had begun teaching her. Stormcloud had become an unexpected ally and friend. She trained Nasha in ways that went beyond traditional women's work, teaching her to hunt, to fight if necessary, to think strategically. The world will not always be kind to you, she told the girl bluntly. You must be strong enough to face it. But it was Dakota who remained her anchor, her North Star. He taught her about honor, about compassion, about seeing beyond surfaces to the truth beneath. When other children teased her about her birthmark, rare but not unheard of, he reminded her that the mark was her strength, not her weakness. The owl is marked differently from other birds, he would say. That is what makes her a hunter in the darkness. Your mark makes you distinctive, memorable. Own it. Let it be your power, not your shame. One spring afternoon, when Nasha was 9, she came to Dakota with the leather pouch Pemberton had left. Grey Wolf had given it to her that morning, deciding she was old enough to understand. Will you tell me about them? She asked, holding the locket. About the people who left me. Dakota sat with her by the river, not the Verde River where he'd found her, but a clear mountain stream that had become their special place. Together they looked at the faded image of Sarah Pemberton, young and frightened. She was 16, Dakota said, reading from the letter. Unmarried, terrified. Her father was harsh, and she couldn't see any way to keep you. She thought you would die anyway because of the mark. She thought the river was mercy. It was, Nasha said softly, because it brought me to you. Dakota put his arm around her shoulders. You understand you can make your own choice about this. If you want to know more about your birth family, if you want to visit Copper Ridge someday. No, she said firmly, they're strangers. You're my father. This, she gestured to the mountains, the camp, the life they'd built. This is my world. The other one is just a story. Stories matter, Dakota reminded her gently. They tell us where we came from. Then my story is this, Nasha said, her voice strong and clear. I was born into one world and rejected. I was reborn into another and accepted. The mark they feared became the mark that defines me, not as cursed, but as chosen. The river didn't take my life. It gave me a new one. She closed the locket and tucked it carefully into her medicine bag, alongside sacred herbs and the small owl feather Dakota had given her years ago. I'll keep it, she said, to remember, but not to mourn. They made their choice. I make mine. As the sun set over the mountains, painting the snow-capped peaks in shades of gold and rose, Dakota marveled at the strength of the child he'd pulled from the water 6 years ago. She had not just survived, she had thrived, becoming exactly who she was meant to be. 15 years had passed since Dakota pulled a dying infant from the Verde River. Nasha was now 18 winters, a young woman whose reputation had spread far beyond the mountain camp. She had become a healer, combining Apache plant knowledge with techniques learned from the few white doctors who had cautiously begun establishing clinics in the territories. Her birthmark, once a sign of curse, had become her signature. People spoke of the marked healer with reverence, not fear. But today she stood at a different river, facing a different kind of rescue. A young Apache boy, no more than 5, had fallen through thin ice on a tributary. His frantic mother screamed from the bank as the current pulled him downstream. Without hesitation, Nasha plunged into the freezing water, just as Takoda had done for her all those years ago. The cold bit deep, stealing breath and strength. But Nasha was a daughter of the mountains now, resilient, determined. Her fingers closed around the child's arm. She pulled him to her chest, turned, and fought her way back to shore. On solid ground, she breathed life back into his small lungs until he coughed and sputtered. The mother wept with relief, clutching her son. The small crowd that had gathered stared at Nasha with awe. She stood dripping, exhausted, the purple mark on her face vivid against her cold, pale skin. "The river gives and takes," she said quietly in Apache, her voice steady despite her trembling. Today it chose to give. Takoda, now 41 winters, and still strong despite the silver threading his hair, pushed through the crowd. He wrapped his own coat around her shoulders, pride shining in his eyes. "Just like your first day," he said softly. "I learned from the best," she replied, leaning into his warmth. That evening, as the community celebrated the boy's survival, Grey Wolf called Nasha to his dwelling. The old chief was frail now, his hair completely white, but his mind remained sharp. Stormcloud sat beside him, her own face showing the first lines of age. "You have done something remarkable," Grey Wolf said. "Not just today, but every day. You've proven that strength comes not from where we're born, but from who we choose to become." "I had good teachers," Nasha said, glancing at Takoda, who stood respectfully at the entrance. "You've been offered a position," Stormcloud said, her tone matter-of-fact, "at the Indian Agency Clinic. They want you to work there, to bridge the gap between our healing ways and theirs." Nasha's eyes widened. The agency clinic served multiple bands and tribes, even some white settlers. It would mean leaving the mountain, traveling extensively, encountering prejudice and resistance. It would also mean helping far more people than she could reach in one camp. "What do you think?" she asked Takoda directly. He smiled, though she could see the bittersweet emotion behind it. "I think," he said slowly, "that the river brought you to us for a reason. Not to stay hidden in the mountains forever, but to grow strong enough to face the wider world. Not to choose between two worlds, but to build bridges between them." "I'm afraid," she admitted. "Fear is the price of courage," Takoda replied. "You've already paid it many times over." 3 weeks later, Nasha stood at the edge of the mountain camp, her belongings packed on a sturdy horse, a gift from Grey Wolf. The entire community had gathered to see her off. Children she'd healed, warriors she'd hunted with, elders she'd honored. All had come to say goodbye. Meadowsong embraced her tightly. "You will always be my daughter," she whispered. "Distance changes nothing." Stormcloud clasped her forearm in a warrior's grip. "Show them what our people are made of." But it was Takoda's farewell that nearly broke her composure. He held both her hands, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "The day I pulled you from that river, I thought I was saving a life. I didn't know I was saving my own. You gave me everything," Nasha said, her voice thick with emotion. "A name, a family, a purpose." "No," Takoda corrected gently. "I simply cleared the path. You became who you are through your own strength, your own choices. The mark on your face is not the story of what was done to you, but what you overcame." He placed a small bundle in her hands, the silver locket from Pemberton, the owl feather from her childhood, and something new, a medicine pouch containing herbs from both Apache and white healing traditions. "Take both worlds with you," he said. "You are the bridge. You always have been." Nasha mounted her horse, looked back one last time at the mountains that had sheltered her, the people who had loved her, and the man who had given her life twice, once by pulling her from the river, and again by teaching her that she was worthy of being saved. As she rode down the mountain trail toward her new life, the morning sun caught the purple birthmark on her face, and for just a moment it seemed to glow with its own light. Not a mark of shame, but a badge of honor worn by a woman who had learned that true belonging comes not from where you're born, but from being brave enough to choose who you become. The river had not claimed her. It had made her.